Hi, in this video lesson I'm going to talk about will. And this lesson was inspired by a member of my Facebook group. So hopefully you are watching and I hope that this will help you. And what we're going to look at is will and how it's not just for talking about the future. So most English learners understand will as a way of talking about the future. Okay, this is really how most people understand the word will. And while it's definitely true, we do use will to talk about the future, it's not really the meaning of will. So in this lesson, I'm going to share a slightly different interpretation of will. I hope that this will help you if you've got any doubts or any questions about this confusing word will. Now, before you go any further, please check these two words. It's really important you understand the meaning of ambiguous and inevitable or inevitably. So if you don't know these words, please pause the video, go and check in a dictionary, then come back and watch the rest. So the first question we need to know is, what kind of a word is will? I mean, obviously it's a verb, but is it a regular verb? Is it a main verb? What kind of word actually is it? Now, will is a modal verb. And this means it's in the same category of words as would, can, have to, should, all of those other modal verbs. And that means it shares a characteristic with the other modal verbs. Now, English uses modal verbs to express a non-factual comment, such as speculation or guesses about a situation. And when it comes to will and what it does, it really allows us to talk about a relationship between two different states. And we've got one state which is at the time of speaking, and then we've got another state which might be in the future, but it also might not be. What is important, and this is the point which is not really ever talked about in course books or grammar books or really anywhere, is that this second state is seen as linked, inevitably linked to this first state. And if you've watched any of my other grammar videos, you know I talk a lot about perception and how with English grammar, the way that the speaker perceives or understands the situation very often influences their choice of grammar tense. So when someone uses will, in their mind, they see this state as being inevitably linked to the other state. So let's look at some examples. Now, here are three very common examples of will. And this is probably the kind of classic way that most people are introduced to will in a course book. And it's things like, oh, I'm so hot, I'll just open that window, right? And course books tell us that will is used for an instant decision made in the time of speaking. And it's true, because if we go back to this, here we are in the time of speaking, and here's the different state, and it's instantaneous. It happens in an instant. So basically, in this kind of use of will, the speaker assesses the present situation and then makes an instant decision on it usually taking some inevitable action, because obviously if I'm hot, I want to stop being hot and I will inevitably take action towards that. All right, so will is also extremely common in the lovely first conditional, and it's often used in sentences like this. You'll break that phone if you drop it again. Um, and here you'll see it's contracted as well. It's contracted up here too. So here we're talking about a consequence because we're talking about a conditional, and the consequence is inevitable. If I drop my iPhone every day, at some point it will break. Okay, my iPhone is not indestructible. Now, course books tend to like to break things down into very small rules for people, and I sometimes feel this causes more confusion than it solves, really. So course books will talk about will for threats, will for promises, but really what we're talking about is just an inevitable consequence. Whether it's a threat or a promise, well, does that really matter? And the third common example is you will be met at the airport by our representative. Now, this is different, right? Because this one, it's not an instant decision. I'm not deciding that in the moment of speaking. That has already been decided. So this is a bit strange. However, what this means is we have made arrangements and you have nothing to worry about. So the listener of this conversation is being reassured of the inevitability of being met at the airport. They have nothing to be concerned about. On the next slide, I'm going to share 3 slightly less common examples with will. So here we've got will in a rhetorical question. And in this question, the speaker is unsure of the inevitable end of the pandemic. So we've been living with coronavirus for over a year now. It's over 1 year that we began hearing about it. When will it end? I mean, it's just going to go on forever. I can't imagine a time when things are going to go back to normal. So this will here, I guess it's questioning the inevitable end of the pandemic. The second example has a meaning of will, which it's a bit ambiguous. We're not quite sure, and we would need the speaker's tone of voice or a context to really know. So this sentence, you will be there by 8 o'clock. It might mean you have time to get there. Don't worry, it's okay. Or it might mean I insist you are there and you arrive by 8 o'clock. Now, in both of those cases, the speaker is expressing the inevitability of the fact that you will be here or there by 8 o'clock. And the final example, and I'm smiling because this just shows how completely crazy English grammar can be, is this one. You'll come home, open a beer, and turn on the TV. Now, you might think this is a future simple sentence. It's not. I'm using will to talk about the present. And I'm using will to express my belief that it is inevitable that my boyfriend does these things when he gets home from work. Basically, he does this every single day. So I see these actions as an inevitable consequence of my boyfriend coming home. I could say this in present simple, of course. I could say he comes home, opens a beer, and turns on the TV. If I say it in present simple, this is now a statement of fact. If I say this with will, I'm now telling you my belief or my opinion about the inevitability of my boyfriend's actions. Now, I'm not going to go into this, but I will tell you that sometimes, believe it or not, we use will to talk about the past. And I'm going to deal with that in a different lesson from today. But I hope this can show you that will, although it's most common for the future, it is not really a future verb. Now, the final example I have is a question from the student in my Facebook group. And essentially the question was, when will is for determination, should we express that as an immediate determination or not? Now that's a great question. And the student gave, the Facebook group member gave the example of, I will study harder. Now it's a really clever question because obviously in course books we read and you are taught that will is for instant decisions that we make now. So surely if we use will for determination, we're talking about immediate determination. I will study harder. But let's have a look at what's really happening in this example. Now, maybe the person who says this is worried about an exam, okay? Maybe they already failed an exam and they have to retake. But whatever, we have got a present situation where this person realizes they are not studying enough. So at the time of speaking, the speaker thinks, I'm not studying enough. And so they need another state. I will study more, I will study harder. And this state is the inevitable consequence or result of this. So these two states are connected. Now, is it immediate determination? Maybe. It could be. It could be that this person has opened their exam results and gone, oh my God, I will study harder next time. Yeah, for sure it could be that, for sure. But much easier to understand this in the whole context of what will does, which is really allowing us to express something that is inevitable. Now, I made this video for a member of my Facebook group who asked a really clever question. And that Facebook group, you know, it really is your space. And if you've got any questions about a bit of grammar, a bit of vocabulary, a skill, part of an exam, please always feel free to ask. I'm always happy to help. I can't promise you will always get a video lesson like this, but if you ask me something that I feel would really benefit the whole group, I might very well make a lesson like this. If you have any questions, any comments, any thoughts about this grammar, please put them in the chat below. I'm always happy to hear from you. And I really hope that that has helped you understand will a little bit more and what it does and why we don't just use it for talking about the future. Thank you for watching.